All right, welcome to this session, to this Global Networking Forum. And we start with a short video, please. All right, welcome to this Global Networking Forum. What will shape the future of European launches? And we just have seen it, that flies the Ariane 6 or whatever. So it was a nice video, and we live in an era where we constantly see nice animations, nice videos about space flight, and I especially like the videos with huge rockets landing on the surface of other bodies in the solar system, with crowds of astronauts getting off and waving. So it seems always so easy to have space flight, but of course today we would like to discuss in the next hour what it takes to turn an animation into reality, and of course with special emphasis on the Ariane 6 and the European launches. So we will discuss questions like what will shape, who will shape this, what missions are we going to see, what will be the future markets, what about the competition. And we have an all-European panel, but of course it's not only a European question, so I hope we attract some people from other parts of the world. Who in the audience is not living or working in Europe? Please wave. All right. Great, please stay here, so we have some non-Europeans here. All right, great. So we have 7 distinguished panelists here. So we have Martin Güntner, the Senator of Economic Affairs, Labours and Ports in Bremen, and probably it's soon the Senator of Economic Affairs, Labour, Ports and Spaceports in Bremen. So we have Jan Werner, Director General, European Space Agency. We have Pierre Godard, CFO of the Ariane Group. Matthias Maurer, ESA astronaut, a rookie. He just graduated last week, so I think we give him a round of applause. We have a new astronaut in Europe.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great job. So we have Luce Fabriguet, Executive Vice President of Arianespace. We have Marco Fuchs, CEO of OHB here from Bremen. And we have Thomas Jatzombeck. He's a member of the German Parliament, and he's a new took your job 6 months ago, so you're still new in the job, second rookie here. You're the coordinator of the German aerospace policy for the federal government. And just to put this into context, so among your predecessors are Brigitte Zypris and the late Peter Hinze, who had this job for 7 years. And we all, I think, remember him very vividly. So I think it's nice that we mention his name here. So we will have short presentation by each of the panelists, 4 minutes maximum, but nobody will be punished if it's even shorter. And after that, we have we have a nice and lively discussion, we hope, about the future of the European launches. So, Mr. Güntner, please start.
So good morning, everybody, dear audience and colleagues. Thank you very much for joining us in this important session on the future of launchers. I feel very honored to sit here or stand here on the podium together with Europe's top leaders concerning rocket business, rocket programmatic and rocket technology. Bremen was and still is the center of the upper stage of all versions of the Ariane launcher, and Bremen is willing to stay in this position and to support all efforts to find the best concept for the next generation of launchers. Concerning the question on what or who will shape the future missions of European launches, my first very simple answer will be it is the customer who will decide. But in real life, and especially on the launcher markets, the situation is not so simple because the market is not a pure commercial free market. The launcher business is determined by a mixture of institutional customers and commercial customers who are both highly depending on political support and governmental strategies. Therefore, the decision on the future of European launchers needs to take into account both The European launcher industry needs reliable data on the launcher policy of their institutional customers in order to prepare the future capabilities. Without preference of any future launcher concept, I think that the future launcher system should be first a European solution that guarantees a reliable, independent access to space for Europe. Second, a clean solution which will not spoil our environment on Earth or in space. Third, a commonly agreed solution which benefits from national and European research. All systems are depending on critical technologies which have high risks concerning readiness in time and cost. The decision will be taken for the time period after Ariane 6, that means for an operational period in about 20 years. Germany has the capabilities to take a leading role in the preparation of the future European launcher system by using the national know-how and the experience of industry and research institutes, including the existing test facilities. I think we should really use these capabilities for working on future launcher concepts, for putting Germany in a better position concerning cooperation and co-work sharing negotiations in the future. The German national program should be used to make German industry more competitive and to prepare new innovative launcher technologies. Finally, I also like to say that I would be very pleased if the future European launcher concept will have a big and visible responsibility at Bremen based on the unique experience concerning the development and the production of upper stages. Thank you for listening.
Right, before we turn to Mr. Werner, just one follow-up. So when you talk to your fellow ministers or senators about economic affairs from the other federal states, are they jealous that you have to deal with the sexy spaceflight business so often?
No, I think that space is, and especially the space industry we have in Germany, is a booster for high technologies and a booster for also change in our industries. It is a great opportunity for us to use these technologies, but therefore we have to have very clear in mind how important it is to create a German, a European strategy, and that will also cost money, of course, and therefore it is quite necessary to have a good cooperation with the national government and to find a way how we can strengthen our industry.
All right. So, Mr. Werner, if you'd like to give your presentation.
Thank you very much. And may I have my picture, my one slide, which was allowed on the screen? That would be very nice. Yes, so I make it very easy. So what shapes the future European launcher? It should be this picture. This was a joint statement we signed between the European Union and ESA, and it has three main topics. Of course, what we are doing is excellent in space science and technology, but this should lead to full integration of space into European economy and society. And there we have already, of course, the economy scale of launcher. A globally competitive European space sector. This is a clear demand. We said this is a goal we would like to achieve. And the third one is European autonomy in accessing and using space. The third one looks like the only one which is linked to launchers, but of course we are looking also to the center one, globally competitive European space sector, as well as the full integration of space into European economy and society. European autonomy in accessing and using space. This is a political message. Now, sometimes people believe and read out of that, okay, that means to whatever price. So yes, you can do it for a big amount of money, you can have this strategic goal achieved. And it would be nice already to have it achieved. But you see the other goal, which means a global competitive European space sector. So it's a clear demand from the political level that the industry is competitive. And this is something we, as a public body, ESA, we cannot do it. We can help, we can give instruments, we can support the development, but it's very clear for me that the competitiveness lies in the hand of industry. And therefore, these are the goals. This should shape really the European launcher sector to be competitive, to be autonomous, and therefore to use it for full integration of space into European economy and society.
Thank you very much. Just one short follow-up. What do you think? Will you see the maiden flight of the Ariane 6 within your first 6 years in office?
You should ask, of course, industry for that. How should I answer? And then they say, he said, and the industry is saying, because you said it, we will charge you by another 10 million.
I said,
therefore,
if you
please
hope
ask
it, if you
him.
hope it.
He should commit when to fly, not me.
All right, so it's your turn now, Mr. Godard.
Okay, thank you. So a warm welcome as well from my side, and as we learned during the opening ceremony, moin. So Ariane Group is a quite a young company. We have been created in 2016. However, we rely on 4 decades in heritage in guaranteeing European independent access to space and enabling European missions to space. Our current launcher, Ariane 5, celebrated the flight number 100, which is more than any other launcher ever before. And we had as well 82 successful launches in a row, which is as well very impressive for as far as reliability is concerned. It's an icon of reliability, competence and experience which we gather into this new firma, new company. So now, on a few words on Ariane 5. We built upon the success of Ariane 5 in order to build the new rocket Ariane 6, which we are currently developing, where we got contracted in 2015. And there will be a leap in technology with massively enhanced flexibility, versatility, and the viability of the product and the launches. We can do any mission. We can cover any market segment with this new rocket, with a reignitable upper stage and a full range of new technology which we embark, so that we can do single payload with the Ariane 62, dual payload with the Ariane 64, and deliver any missions in any orbit. So with this new product, with Ariane 6, we are able to support any future European ambition and any key mission with new objectives as far as we, as of today, know. And we can as well further develop European exploration wishes. So now Ariane 6 has been as well developed together with customers, and from the beginning we have foreseen that we would further enhance the product, so it is not the end of the story with this new rocket. We are thinking on new development already now with, for example, Prometheus, which is a low and reusable, low cost and or ultra low cost and reusable engine. We target to be 10 times cheaper than today's Ariane's engine, which is quite a lot. We are working on black upper stage in order to have as well a lighter upper stage with use of carbon composite, and in order to reduce as well cost and to improve the performance and to increase the payloads which we can bring into orbit. And last but not least, we work as well on technologies in order to prepare reusability with programs such as Callisto and Themis. And I'm sure we will have the opportunity today to further discuss all those topics which I just wanted to mention very shortly. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Godard. Just one follow-up for you as well. Is it more fun to develop the Ariane 6 than it was to develop the Ariane 5?
More fun, I don't know. It's more stress, I would say. This is for sure. So we have a very tight schedule. We have very difficult topics to tackle from a technical point of view, from a financial point of view. I've not mentioned, but we want to be 40% cheaper than an Ariane 5. Well, you say 50, so we say 40, so we will have to...
Depends how you calculate it, that's fine.
Between 40 and 50. No, but this is a challenge, so we crunch the schedule, and we want to have a much more versatile rocket. So if you add all those challenges, then it is quite a good topic for the next years.
Mr. Maurer?
Okay, thank you again for the nice applause in the beginning. It's true, we are looking back to a proud legacy of European launches, and I'm convinced that with all the thorough work that has been put into the development of Ariane 6 and Vega, this new combination will also be the European asset in the future and will fulfill our expectations. As the only astronaut here in the panel, you allow me that I also would like to give you another point of view, which is the human access to space. We talked about independent access to space for Europe on the launcher side, and we had the dream of an independent access to space in the past when we started developing Hermes and Ariane 5. And I think we should continue living this dream, keeping up this vision in the future, which doesn't mean we need to do it tomorrow with Ariane 6, but we should keep this dream alive. And you might challenge me and say, like, why? Why should we also invest in this? Why should we go this way? Because currently there are the Soyuz launches, man-rated, Chinese launches, man-rated. There's 3 new low Earth orbit American commercial systems in preparation, and for deep space we have another system. The Indians will have a man-rated launcher, flight 2023. So this gives already 7 systems in the world. And you might say, does Europe really need to invest in that? Well, my answer is, as an astronaut, I wish that we have this independent access, and I think it is inspiring for the engineers, for the youth of Europe to have this ambition. Of course, it needs to be economically viable, and this means the human-rated dream can only come true if the satellite version, the commercial version, is fully economically viable. So there's still a long way to go, and I hope that we will follow our dream, and only the future will decide if it's time to enter into this direction or to say, like, okay, Europe needs to buy human access to space on the market and not provide it by itself. Thank you.
Thank you. One second. So did you get a special present for your graduation from the DG? Maybe a mission assignment?
He got, of course, he got the clear words that he will fly. This is a big present, isn't it?
Yes, he didn't say, like, I will fly on the European rocket, so I mean...
Yeah, so what would be your favorite destination for your first Ariane 6 flight? What would be your favorite destination for them?
Well, it's, I think the most likely destination will be the International Space Station, and that's where we're currently flying, and we need to make best use of this platform.
But I mean with Ariane 6, so this puts too much pressure on the Ariane 6 that it man-rated while the ISS is still in existence. All right. Okay. Coming back to the Ariane 6, I mean, if you could choose any destination with Ariane 6, what would you take?
I mean, we have a clear exploration roadmap, which consists of 3 different destinations. Low Earth orbit, where we always will do research in zero gravity, and we will remain in low Earth orbit. But then we will return or go forward to the moon again. And then the moon is a stepping stone towards Mars. And Mars will not be the end, but it will be, let me say, the horizon goal for our generation, and hopefully the next generations will think even beyond Mars.
All right, thank you very much. Brigitte, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We at Arianespace, we are at the crossroads between European industry of launcher. Pierre has already said a word, and Marco will go further. And we are at the crossroads between European industry and the market demand, whether institutional with the agencies, with the European agency demand, and the commercial market. So we are at this interesting place in the middle. And for years, for decades, even now, we have been working on the applications in space. I would classify them in three big categories, if I may. I would say the applications for our day-to-day life on Earth, so for your better life on Earth, just like communication at the beginning, satellite communications, just like meteo, ground weather forecast, and now more and more navigation also. So all these applications for a better life on Earth, for our day-to-day life, and we will go on working on that for sure in the coming decades. Second, we also have been working on a better knowledge of Earth. We have launched, for instance, Aeolus with Vega last launch in August from the European spaceport in Kourou. And this mission is clearly to study the winds around the Earth. So we are launching and will go and launch also to better know about Earth, about the environment of Earth, to better know about some hot topics such as the climate and the evolution of the climate around the Earth. Then I would mention a third category that is maybe the most exciting one when we launch in 2 weeks from now, Bepi Colombo, that is getting prepared right now in French Guiana. That will be for sure an exciting launch. So that's the third category beyond Earth, whether satellite just like Moon, natural satellites around the Earth, or even Bepi Colombo is going to Mercury. So the knowledge, no more about the cosmos, about much more than the Earth and its close environment. So be sure that, I don't know what will shape the future, maybe tomorrow, and we will discuss that between us in the coming hour, but be sure that we will be there to shape this future, all of us, and be sure that we are preparing today the tools for that. We are at an exciting point, an exciting turning point now. We see a different orbits. We see a lot of new initiatives. We see a lot of new objects coming, even more than objects, with Matthias, for instance, living people, living men and women. So, and we see different orbits studied. So for sure, we need to prepare, and we are preparing today with Ariane 6 and Vega C, with our new launch vehicles, to seize these new opportunities and go on shaping the future of space in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, of course, what has shaped the European launches so far, the past and the present, is, of course, the outstanding performance you have shown. So, are you afraid that Ariane 6, I mean, that's a tough benchmark. Are you afraid that Ariane 6 won't be as reliable as Ariane 5?
Ariane 6 will rely on the heritage of Ariane 5, so high, as you said, high reliability with Ariane 5. Technologies that have been flight proven with Ariane 5, and then the new tool with Ariane 6, and the progress with Ariane 6 is clearly on the industrial organization, on the business model for sure, on the share of responsibilities between public and private, and but we are fully confident that the level of reliability will be there with Ariane 6. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fuchs, please. It's your turn.
Yes, good morning, everybody. It's a big pleasure to be here at this panel today, because obviously this is one of the hot topics we discuss in the European space industry. What is the future of European launchers? I think the starting point is clear that we are, and we all witness it here in the last days, we are in a very vibrant industry currently. The space industry is booming in many ways. Of course, on the other side, it's also becoming more plural. We have more demand, of course, for launch services, because there are more and more initiatives. And of course, we have more supply. So there's more competition. There are other players entering. I heard the number that about 100 rocket projects are currently carried out, or maybe at least contemplated. We will face a bigger and more confusing market, and as Europeans we have to prepare ourselves. We are now very well advanced in our Ariane 6 development, so I guess the first conclusion is we have to complete Ariane 6. By the time we will have the 71st IAC in Dubai, we will have had the first hopefully successful launch of Ariane 6 in 2020. Of course, another important topic is the institutional demand in Europe should be consolidated around Ariane. This is an obvious statement, and we need to transfer that into the Ariane 6 product, because of course the difficult part will be the transition. I mean, the difficult part in a new product is let's say starting Ariane 6 and ramping down Ariane 5. This is a big challenge for industry. And of course, market expectation and market confidence at that point needs to be supported also by our institutional partners. Improvement on Ariane 6 will come, hopefully, at one point. We have to debate what has to be done, how and when. I think the big question mark lies currently, when we look at it, lies in the question of the commercial market. Of course, that's a big topic. We don't know exactly what role we will be able to play long term with the Ariane product in the commercial market. The commercial launch market itself is changing. New players, as I said, new types of customers, constellations will play a role, hopefully a significant role. So I think for the time being, the main point is to focus on our work that we currently have in completing Ariane 6, completing the Ariane 5 lifetime in the next years in a successful way. And as we heard earlier, we just recently had the 100th successful Ariane 5 launch. So that is the heritage, that is the market confidence we are building upon. And I think overall we are in a good position to be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Of course, everybody's asked, especially next year, what did you do on July 21st, 1969? That's a major date for the, well, manned space flight, but of course for European space flight, it's Christmas Eve 1979. Do you recall what you did on this day?
That was the first launch of Ariane 1. I remember it because my father was also involved in the Ariane program at that time. So I don't really specifically remember it, but what I do remember is the time when he made all these trips to French Guiana early on, when they were building up, at that time here from Erno, building up the Ariane project. Yes, so it's part of my life since my childhood.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Jatzombeck, so it's the floor is yours.
So thank you for having me here today. The future of the launchers from our perspective, so let me first say the answer, I think, to a lot of questions for the future in space is new space. We need to broaden the number of stakeholders to open to a private sector. And so we already did, and the first European launcher from new space is Orbital Express, which is funded by our government, by the High-Tech Gründerfonds, with a very lower end, a tiny rocket, but you see there are more players than just Ariane Group in this market, and I think it's necessary for the future to be open for new ideas and for new engineers and for new business models for new launchers. The second thing is the question, what will be the future of our major project of the Ariane? And I can agree to a lot of things that has been said here today. We have chosen in 2014 for Ariane 6, and now we are going to see that it will get reality. We will see the first launch in 2020, and I think the Ariane 6 rocket brings several advantages. It has multi-ignition, it can get to the lower orbit, and so it brings a lot of new use cases. And I think it's the right answer at this point. But the question is, will it be the right answer for the future? And so here you have to separate the questions. What is with institutional launches? It's the first thing. And especially our French friends, who has traditionally kind of a leading position in building launchers, have also a military perspective on that topic. And for institutional launchers, I think Ariane 6 is a good rocket, and it can make a lot of development over the years. And I think for all the use cases we have there, it's the right answer. But on the other side, it's necessary for us also to bring all the institutional use cases to Ariane. This is a very important issue I'm working on. And on the other side, is Ariane 6 the answer to the commercial market? And to be honest, I don't know. Because this is a decision the market will bring. And when we look back 10 years ago, we hear a lot of people telling us that Ariane 5 was the benchmark in the industry. But today, I don't know if Ariane 6 will be the benchmark, as it seems the benchmark is SpaceX. And this has several reasons. One of the reasons we always hear is a lot of subsidies from the American government, from the NASA. But to be honest, we also bring a lot of public money to the Ariane. So it's hardly to compare. And we don't know exactly today how big is really the amount which is coming from which governments to all these projects. So it's pretty hard to compare the prices in the end. The second difference is that everything is different organized in SpaceX. You have a single hall, but you have a completely different approach in organizing a company. And I'm not sure if European taxpayers and voters would agree to the kind that Elon Musk is handling with all his employees if we would do that in our factory. So you have to keep that in mind if an answer would be to consolidate also in Europe in everything in one place. It could only be that effective if you have the same terms of organizing a company, and I don't believe that a public company can be run as a venture capital driven company as it is SpaceX. So, and the last point is the question of reusability. We will talk about that, and I think it's a question of amount of launches you have every year. But to conclude all this, I think it's relevant for the commercial market to find an answer how Ariane can be the innovation leader, the global innovation leader. We will never be, as Europeans, the country that can provide the cheapest products. So our quality is to bring the best, the most innovative products. And this is not an answer politics can give, this is an answer the industry must give. This Ariane must give the answer, how can we get back the position to be the #1 benchmark worldwide? How can we be the innovation leader? And then I believe Ariane can also be a player for the commercial market, and I would like to see them as a player in the commercial market and to succeed.
Thank you very much. You are too young to remember Christmas Eve 1979, or at least you didn't watch the TV news, I guess. But when did you become aware of the Ariane rocket for the very first time in your life?
So when I was a child, I was fascinated about everything going to space. And there was a long period we were really proud to say, so as we Europeans are best in class to build automobiles, we are also the best in class to build gateway to space. And I think this must be our goal to come back to that.
Thank you very much. So, all right, so let's start the discussion. So you mentioned the market is so confusing, there's so much competition. So is in your view, is it a fair competition, or how do you feel in Europe?
Okay, first of all, who is in competition? This is the main question. Is it the public, or is it the companies which are in competition? For me, it's very clear. It's the companies. Of course, we would like to have autonomous access to space from Europe, but at the same time, we are not the ones, at least I don't feel that we are the ones who make the rocket as such. This is a responsibility of industry, and this time with Ariane 6 and Vega C, we changed the paradigm. The paradigm in the past was very close, even you could call it micromanagement if you like, very close interaction permanently in each and every step. And we had a discussion before we decided to go on with Ariane 6 and Vega C. There were some proposals from the public side what to do. And then industry came up with their own proposal saying we will make it 50% cheaper. That's my remembering, but if you say 40%, it's okay. But this is not the question. It's not the question for me whether it's cheaper or more expensive than Ariane 5. This is for me not the benchmark. The benchmark for me is it should be competitive on the world market. And this is really a fierce competition with different players playing in a different role. And there is a clear question for Europe. Do we like to have an autonomous access to space, yes or no? Number one, this was decided by the member states of ESA, yes. Number two, now how to find the best rocket for that purpose. And there we can discuss a long time about reusability, about expandable things, about the question of the industry structure, which was mentioned already in all of this. But again, I keep it simple. We changed this paradigm, moving governance towards the industry. We still have some CNES, ESA support, but the full authority, the full governance, the full responsibility remains with industry, and I can just ask industry to be competitive and to look to the market, and if the market is changing, their product and their way to produce this product and their industrial structure has to move as well. Of course, we have some boundary conditions. In ESA, we have our different member states, and if a member state pays about 20% of a project, they have the right to ask for return in their country. This is something industry have to understand and to follow and to give a good answer to that question.
Mr. Weller?
Thank you. So I would like to give a few words as well on the competition and the way it is working in the rocket segment. First, to make things very clear, we are in favor of competition. We are not against competition at all. But you know, it's a bit like in sport. You have to have fair competition. If the one guy is drinking pure water and the other guy is full of chemicals, then there is a slight disadvantage. So now to come back in the rocket market, what do we see? We see that we have some competitors which have heavy contracts coming from the national institutions. In the US, SpaceX has already 13 orders this year for institutional launches, with a price which is twice as big as what they do propose in the European market. This is number one. So that this is a capture market where we have no access. We cannot sell the rocket there. And it is a protected market where they can make their business, and then they come to Europe with a price which is half of it, $100 million in the US, 50 in Europe when they propose a contract. This is number one. Number two, so which means with all of that cadences and so on and so forth, which is going with that. Number two, Europe is the only continent where our competitors can bid for institutional launches. If you look at Russia, China, US, they all launch with their own rockets. And then we are asking, why is Europe developing a new rocket and not using it afterwards? So, and therefore, you have here already a few items. I could make the list longer with social regulation, which we have in Europe. You mentioned the geo-return. We are not allowed to produce things in the US in the dollar area. So we are exposed to the dollar variation. US companies are not. They have their cost in US dollar and they sell in US dollar. We have our cost in euro and we sell in US dollar. We need to cover that. And we are not allowed to delocate, so to say, from Europe components and to have it produced outside. For good reason, which I can understand. But then if you add all those items, then it is unfair to say we are not competitive and you cannot reach the same level. You know, if you run for 100 meters with 20 kilo rocks in your backpack compared to somebody in shorts and t-shirts, you don't make the same time by definition.
But the reason for the geo-return is not as such defined. It is defined because you are asking for money for the development of the rocket. If you would not ask for that, then this would be another story. So if there's another company in Europe coming up and saying, okay, we buy the parts from the United States or something from Brazil or wherever, then of course this geo-return does not count. So I think we are in the same boat. We would like to develop, and what I would like to say, which is often forgotten, if a European entity, a public entity, is buying a European launcher, they get already some return because of the tax you have to pay. This is sometimes forgotten. So the same launcher in Europe and in America, if you buy it in America, you have to send the money abroad. If you do it in Europe, you have to send it to them, and they pay a little bit.
A lot.
Okay, some money back.
All right, but still there's some sort, I mean, we want to have, we say the rocket should be competitive on the world market. On the other hand, we say Europe needs this independent or this autonomous access to space. This might be a contradiction. I mean, if the Ariane doesn't meet the competitive level set by SpaceX or whatever, so do we need some chemicals in the water? So would politics provide some guarantee of institutional launches or whatever.
Yeah, but as I said, I mean, there are two different fields. Yeah, for institutional launches, we will provide Ariane. That's no question. The question is, can we achieve that already in 2020 or 21, or how many things have to be launched before and cannot be delayed? Whatever. Decisions from the past, yeah, but for the future this will happen. I'm absolutely sure about that, because else it wouldn't make any sense for us to invest public money in a launcher if we wouldn't use it. So it's an obvious thing. On the other side is the question of the commercial market, and that's a different thing. And so we're a little bit concerned about the acceptance in the market right now, because we are only talking about institutional starts. I would like to hear also a little bit of success stories of the commercial market. So if it would be a different thing if it would only be starting institutional, and this is exactly not what we wanted from the beginning.
Right, but Mr. Fuchs?
Maybe on this point of the institutional market, I think the real issue is not the commitment, but the real issue is the size of the institutional market. It doesn't help to say we have the institutional market for Ariane if the institutional market is in de facto only 4 launches a year. We can commit for 5, but what we are doing if it's only 4. So, I mean, as a satellite manufacturer, of course, the best way to solve the Ariane issue is to buy more satellites, more institutional programs, because then you would obviously have a bigger institutional market. And that's at the end the only solution, because you cannot keep a launcher alive if you don't have sufficient demand for it. The commercial market is an issue, of course, which I think is currently difficult to judge. We talk a lot about the competitors, yes, but the reality is the key issue we have to manage is the transition from Ariane 6 to from Ariane 5 to Ariane 6. Because if you look at the concerns some institutional players do have with Ariane 6, it's the fact that it's not here yet. So you cannot expect from people that have operational requirements to rely on an Ariane 6 that probably will be there at a certain time. So we have to complete Ariane 6. This is the biggest, I think, success factor for making Ariane 6 also successful in all markets, is to be there to prove reliability, because I agree, then the institutional market will follow. But you cannot, if people have to launch in 21 or whatever, they cannot rely on an Ariane 6 that might launch in July 21st, because they do have operational requirements. They do need heritage, to see heritage in advance. So we have to overcome that. But if you basically have a company, or not a company, but a group of companies that has one product, which is Ariane 5 and becomes Ariane 6, of course transition is difficult. Nobody should be naive about that. That's a very difficult period for all of us. And we have to work on that jointly. And then we will see, because again, at the end of the day, when Ariane 5 was conceived, it was not conceived as a commercial telecom rocket. It was planned to be for Hermes, for very different operational scenario, but it was able to be successful in the commercial. Let's wait and see. Let's give us a few years. I'm not so pessimistic that we will find a role also in the commercial market. But of course, we will not be 50+% of that market anymore. The market is much different.
And maybe one word to the market. Last week we had the 100th launch of Ariane 5, and it started initially, I looked in Wikipedia, 1996, so it's more than 20 years. To calculate that, these are 5 launches per year. So it's quite a lot we're talking about for Ariane 6 in comparison.
So is it just a lack of courage, of confidence within Europe? So do we need more billionaires very active on Twitter?
But billionaires don't solve the problem. Billionaires are not the problem. The problem is to have the right product, because if you say our intent is to have a European access to space, billionaires have a different vision. I listened to a talk of one of the core people of SpaceX on Monday evening. The vision of SpaceX is to go to Mars. It's not to provide sovereign access to somebody. The vision of Blue Origin is also an exploration goal. It's not the vision to say, I want to do this for strategic reasons. So there is a purpose behind it, and we need to find a purpose. And I think governments and industry have to think about what is that purpose. Is that purpose really, as in the golden ages of Ariane 5, that the commercial market provides 80% of the revenue and governments can use Ariane 5 when and if they need it? No, that's not going to work anymore. And we are all, I think we're all aware of that. It's not going to be the old Ariane 5 model anymore.
All right, so...
But what is the vision of Europe or of Germany? What is our vision? You described, I think in the right way, the vision of SpaceX and of Bezos and whoever.
Yeah, but...
And the strategic thinking behind this. But what is...
No, but
we said, the DG said, make the rocket cheaper.
Yes.
That is the classical vision of Europe.
Oh, you know
and
what
Germany.
the vision is?
No,
That's not a vision.
So, first of all, I have to contradict a little bit Marco. Marco, if you talk to Elon Musk or to Jeff Bezos, of course they have some vision. Elon Musk, Mars, he changed that vision, as you know. He wants to make money, full stop. Jeff Bezos wants to make money, full stop. And interesting enough, they do it. So
it's a good starting point to have that goal.
So that goal is not so bad, but it's a goal of industry and not a goal of the public side. The public side, no. The public side may have some interest in industrial competence and all workplace and all of this. This is an industrial goal. But as I said, for Europe, it was clearly defined this autonomous access to space as being a strategic goal. Launchers as itself are fascinating if you see them. Yes, they are inspiring. Really, dreams are really getting up. Huh? That's a good feeling. So the vision is that we have an autonomous access to space for a competitive price so that we can launch European payloads and payloads from others as well, and Arianespace is doing that. I mean, Arianespace does not have only European payloads. I mean, that's for sure, so we have to say that. There is a captive market, yes, it exists, where we have to be careful, but Europe should have its own captive market strongly, and therefore I'm asking also the European states. I wrote a letter to all member states of ESA, please use European launchers. But the vision must not be one vision for the launchers as such. It is, the launcher sector is a capability, and we have to maintain this capability for Europe.
All right.
This is clear, so I agree. So if you take the example of Jeff Bezos, however, we do not have in Europe, as far as I know, somebody putting 1 billion per year from his own money through Amazon business. 1 billion per year to build a rocket, building a factory in one site, one country, one man, one big pocket. So it is not the way Europe is working. So, and we are working with the different constraints here around the table, or there is no table, but around the podium. We have 27 nations which are working on space in Europe. Everybody has an idea, everybody wants to do this, to do that, and we are the European launcher building bricks together and bringing the technology together. So at the end of the day, I'm convinced that with the constraints and with the system which we have in Europe, we are competitive. We are competitive. If the rules are the same for everybody, we are competitive. The problem where we are, what we are faced with is that the rules are completely different from one continent to the next one. And there you have a discrepancy, and then you arrive to a situation where, by definition, if you have completely different rules, the result of the game is different.
Yeah, but Boeing and Airbus, different rules, and Airbus is a success story.
Yes, but you
the
have...
planes, I mean.
That's true, but you have access, all the customers in the airplanes are private customers, you have access to the worldwide market, you can sell Airbus to Russia, to the US, to any airlines of the world, which is not the case for a rocket. It is not the case.
We don't limit you to sell the rocket to Russia.
Yeah, we are not allowed to sell neither to China, neither to the US.
The launch you can do, of course, and they are doing
not,
it.
Not the institutional launches. They are not allowed. We are not allowed to do so.
All right, so let's get back to this vision. I mean, Europe is doing great in space so far. Let's just mention Copernicus, the outstanding Copernicus program, Galileo, whatever. Could Europe maintain this position without an autonomous access to space?
We have the experience that that doesn't work. We had the experience with satellite Symphony.
Symphony, yeah, 90.
And that's always the example.
Yeah.
And Symphony was launched, and then we got the clear, it was not launched with the European launcher, and then it was said, but you're not allowed to use it for commercial purposes. So therefore, it's clear, autonomy is a strength, and by the way, autonomy is also something, if you want to cooperate, you better show that you are strong and not that you are weak. So both depends on it. Therefore, autonomy has a big power in global cooperation. Competition is a driver, cooperation is the enabler for even more.
I think the Symphony, maybe not everybody is familiar with that. I mean, Symphony was these two communication satellites in the early 70s. Of course, they were supposed to be launched with the Europa rocket, the first project which completely failed. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the US government just banned the satellites from being used commercially. And this was a trigger for the Ariane project. I mean, so are there any lessons learned? I mean, nowadays the political landscape in the world is changing. I mean, we get back to some nationalism, whatever. Is this Symphony story, is this something where we still can get some lessons from?
I don't know if the Symphony case would be a case today, because it was a question of limiting a commercial product. And so as it seems, you have today SpaceX and Blue Origin and other players from other countries, and they all want to make money. And I don't believe that we were today, or we could come today to a situation like it was with Symphony, that we would be limited on a commercial satellite. But the question is, so if you look at space, what's going on there between the states and one satellite flying beneath the others, and some are going with lasers to space and this and that, and the race to the moon and all these questions. So it's more an institutional question today to be sovereign. Yeah, that's a different thing. But to put the elephant in the room, the question in this commercial market, also the interesting comparison between Airbus and Boeing in terms of planes. These are both traditional industrial companies. They are not venture capital driven new economy companies. And that's the complete difference. I mean, the speed and the decisions and the brutality of a guy like Elon Musk is so completely different. And look at the automotive industry. And they don't have geo-return. Yeah, and so he was so fast, so extreme, maybe he can crash with that, but no matter, he's pushing products forward where the old industries believed so we could develop this in 20 years. And now he made it possible in 2 years. And so that's the difference. It's a completely different change in mode and in speed. It's the question between new economy and old economy. And that's what's going on, and that's what's hitting the market here. And I don't think the answer will be to say we need to shape the geo-return or that we need to concentrate it in one plant. It will not change the momentum. The momentum is coming from the entrepreneur.
But I mean, I think that's probably, I don't know whether we have the right perspective on that. I don't really recall a project that SpaceX achieved within 2 years. I mean, they are announcing it or twittering very fast, but probably in most cases they have long delays. I mean, the Dragon version, the V2 Dragon was, I think, announced or presented 4 years ago, and it's still not in orbit. So,
but SpaceX is very fast in changing also their launcher according to demands they get the next day. So, for instance, I was not happy when they sent a car into space, because the car is not making any special action over there. It's the opposite. He is endangering now other spacecrafts. But this decision was done, and within a couple of months, and without requesting from NASA additional money, they could adapt the Tesla on top of the launcher and put it also in space in a silent mode. This is something I admire, that this quick and fast changing of something. So we should have, and I learned that not one Falcon was the same as the Falcon before. So they are always changing to make it better. There is some risk with it, I know, but no risk, no fun.
All right. So
at the same time, Jan, when the reverse of the medal, as you said it implicitly, is that you've got customer. I'm not sure that to have a changing strategy, even it's clear that products are changing. One Falcon launcher is different from the previous one, the strategy is also changing a lot. They had the Falcon 1 at the beginning, then Falcon 5, then Falcon 9. I'm not saying they are not very agile. They are not very agile in the way they are going to change their products and so on, but they are also agile, maybe too much in their strategy, in the going to the moon, going to Mars, going to have a full constellation of thousands of satellites, and that cannot be not so. It can make the customer not so confident in this way of managing the company also. So
I understand that, but this was my question. I had to have Mr. Jasombeck back, if you allow me. You said that also the institutional side would like to have confidence into the launcher, whether it will be launched in 2020 or 2021. My position is the institutional clients, they should drive the innovation by being not risk averse, but saying, okay, there is a new product. We can try it. That would be a little bit my feeling, that the public side should be the driver of the innovation, and not saying, okay, let's first try some commercials, whether they succeed or not succeed. Maybe I'm wrong in my opinion, but that would be interesting.
So maybe Marco Fuchs can explain that better. It was his point, but I think it's right. So we have some users, they say we need to launch it this year, and we cannot wait till 21.
Okay. So, this one, okay.
So these are arguments. I say we already made some contracts and whatever. So I see my job as to being a lobbyist for launching with European products, and our budget committee in Bundestag is going forward so that we can do the tenders also very Ariane friendly. Because as it doesn't make any sense. But I don't have the feeling that we are on the winner track if the institutional ones say, so what about the commercial ones? And the commercial ones say, what about the institutional ones? We need to start up in some way, And so there is, from my personal completely commitment to starting institutional starts with Ariane, as far as is possible. And on the other side, but there has also been commercial success stories.
Yes.
But on that point, maybe just last sentence on that point. So Ariane 6 was developed as well with commercial customers. So therefore, we had workshop at the very beginning, obviously, with institutional customers, but as well with commercial customers. And the resonance we have today is that the product is very well fitted to the demands of the commercial customers. So we have already signed some contracts with customers, commercial customers. So it is a very attractive product and a competitive product in the light of what I've mentioned before. However, when you have a delta of 50%, then this is a difficulty where we are aiming at. But the commercial customers, and we see that in the backlog of Arianespace, which 2/3 is commercial, basically, which is the reverse for SpaceX, which gives as well a view on where they make their business and their profitability and where we do ours. So this is exactly the reverse. But the commercial customer want this product, they are very keen on it, and they are confident, because we have signed already a contract, they are confident that we will start in 2020. So therefore it's a bit the reverse, and I'm with you, then the institutions should follow and say, okay, we have as well confidence and we'll start with this product.
The challenge we got is that we have, because you mentioned the commercial market. The commercial market, for sure, Ariane 5 has become, and we made it a benchmark on the commercial market. And you mentioned that in 20 years we only launched 100 times. If you have a look on the beginning of Ariane 5, when it was not so much reliable, it's very different from the last part when we have regularly launched. And then when it's clear that we cannot deny that, it's clear that today we have a slowdown on the commercial market. Last year and this year, we have a number of orders of satellites that has been decreased compared to what we had in the past because of the geostationary market issues, questions by operators about what about low Earth orbit, what about different business case, what about ground infrastructure competition. And so we have seen clearly a slowdown of this geostationary segment. We also have seen constellations that have slowed ramp up compared to what we had in mind. So it's clear today we have the challenge, as was said by Marco, to match this this slowdown of 2 years on the number of orders of satellites, together with the end of Ariane 5 and the transition to Ariane 6 in the 5 years to come. So it means we need, and that's our challenge today, to see how we are going to manage this transition. But for sure, we forecast a ramp up of the market in the coming years. Now we know that there are geostationary satellites that will need to be replaced. We know that there will be constellations. So we are confident that in the future we will have the demand for Ariane 6. It's clear that today there is this 2 years, difficult 2 years.
Right, thank you very much. I think we wrap it up with what do I like? So I start a sentence and you please complete it. I have a short message for the people if they go out. So, Mr. Güntner, without the Ariane rocket, the city of Bremen
would have a lack of 45 years of experience with the upper stage, and we hope, of course, to have again 45 years of success with the Ariane rocket.
The decision to build the Ariane 6
is done.
If we could start over to develop the Ariane 6,
We will do the same.
all right. If I got an invitation to join the first flight of the big Falcon rocket,
If I felt it was secure and fully tested, I would absolutely step in there and fly with it.
by the year 2030, the Ariane 6.
Sorry, I didn't.
So by the year 2030, the Ariane 6.
Ariane 6, what will be Ariane 6 in 2030?
Yeah, so.
That will be the commercial benchmark.
Right, so new space for me is?
New space for me is what we do since 25 years.
Great. Very good point. And that rockets do not run on diesel fuel. That's a German insider, sorry.
The Bavaria 1 Andy Scheuer rockets, yeah.
All right. So luckily they're not built by Volkswagen. Thank you very much for this lovely discussion. Thank you for joining us. Thanks a lot.